After posting this video about mistakes that have happened at Hatsune Miku concerts, many people have pointed out even more mistakes that have happened at these concerts, some even crazier than the ones I pointed out in the original video. So before we dive into them, I would like to thank everybody who shared these with me. You're all amazing and thank you so much. So let's jump into the first mistake, which I find the craziest out of all of these, which is a playback error that happened at Miku Expo LA in 2014. It was partway through the concert, Len and Rin had just finished their songs, and it was time for Miku to grace the stage again. However, it seems like Len wasn't quite ready to accept the fact that he'd already performed his last song, and he tried to perform Fireflower again. I don't know why it's so funny to imagine Len just messing around backstage singing, only for his mic to still be on, and then getting cut off by Rin slapping him. But once more, this makes me question just how the playback works, as Fireflower had an intermission before it, which you can hear a small part of before Len's vocals start, so why did the audio start there instead of at the beginning of the intermission? But regardless, this clip also helps prove that the band are in fact playing live, as we don't hear any of the instrumentals once Len starts singing. But it's another funny error I selfishly wish we can see more of, as I don't think we've seen this type of error in quite a long time. But this next mistake is another one of Len's mess-ups. At Magical Mirai 2013, Shake It was performed live for the very first time, and despite it being a brand new performance, there is a mistake in the motion capture that is quite easy to miss. So let's see if you can spot it first. Did you see it? If you focus on Len, you can see that he actually forgets the choreography for a split second. It is still difficult to catch as he does recover quite quickly, but you can see that he's late to shake his hands around. While Miku and Rin move their hands from left to right, Len just shakes his in one spot. And then he forgets to raise his hand and strike the same pose as Miku and Rin, which we can see better if we pause it. It's very evident that he didn't raise his hand in time, but after that, he does manage to recover and finish the last few seconds of the song. Obviously, as funny as it is to think that Len is the one that forgot the choreography, the dancer mocapping Len's part must have accidentally slipped up, perhaps mistaking when the song ended, as the end of the song does repeat the same thing quite a few times, so they likely misjudged how many times it repeats, goes to strike the end pose, realizes it still carries on, and had to recover. And I bet their heart dropped when this happened, thinking they'd have to cause everyone to re-record it again, especially since this performance had been flawless right up until the last few seconds. But either the team saw it as acceptable, or they didn't notice the error and the dancer didn't bring it up, or they were on a time crunch and couldn't afford to re-record it again, as this mistake went through entire production and made it onto the final stage. This version of the performance is also used at Magical Mirai 2014, but conveniently, the camera pans away so we don't get to see it again. But there is a different mistake in this performance, which is a minor clipping error, which we can see Rin's hand clipping through Miku's hair at the very end of the song, which is likely from two different Miku animations transitioning over from Shake It into the speech, which was different to 2013, but Rin was kept the same, so they likely just didn't notice that Miku's new animation caused her hair to go through Rin's hand. But in 2015, Len has mastered the choreography as a brand new version of the performance is recorded again, with the majority of the performance being exactly the same, aside from the last chorus, where in the 2013 version, Rin and Len run across the entire stage while Miku stops in the middle, while in the 2015 version, it is changed to where Miku is the one that runs across, while the Kagamine stopped in the middle. So this finally answers my age-old question, as I never understood why they randomly chose to re-record the whole performance just to change that random thing at the end, but now I know it's because Len messed up their original performance. Next, we have an error that occurs with the glass screen projector. As much as we praise the hologram setup, it doesn't come without its flaws. The main one being a pretty big error that cannot easily be fixed, and that is projector misalignment. The glass screen setup uses multiple projectors that all need to be lined up perfectly in order to produce a clear image. And in the behind the scenes, you can see how tedious it is to align them. So what happens when they aren't perfectly aligned is that we see a blurry overlapped image. Here is a case of it happening at Miku Expo 2016 in San Francisco, and when Miku floats up, we can see multiple projections of her overlapping. This issue also happened at Miku Expo Paris in 2018, which we can see it happen when the characters move to the left side of the stage. You can see that the image gets a little bit more fuzzy, but it is still difficult to catch at times, so the most obvious way to show this would be during the Romeo and Cinderella performance. As we can see with the balcony walls, the right balcony wall is perfectly straight, while the left wall has a little bit of that overlapping image. And we can also see it during the performances of the Kagamines. It's very evident there is some misalignment on the left side, as whoever is on the left looks a little bit more blurry than whoever's on the right. And for some reason, the projectors were shaking a lot during this entire concert. There are many points you can see the images shaking, and it's not the camera, as the floor and the background lights aren't shaking at all. Just look at how much Miku's legs are jerking here. I'm not sure what caused the shaking, but the misalignments can be very disruptive and hard to ignore at times, especially if there's a huge misalignment. For this concert, it seemed to be on and off when it was noticeable, with it being more obvious from some angles compared to others. And for the Paris concert, it was present for the entire show. So misalignments can be detrimental, especially if they're severe, since they cannot be fixed unless the concert is forced to be paused. So either the concert would have to be paused to realign them, which I don't think has ever happened before. Magical Mirai's 2015 projector error wasn't a misalignment error and more just a playback error. So far I don't think any concert has been paused to realign them. So if there is a misalignment, the concert likely just has to continue with it. I don't think very noticeable misalignments are super common, but it's definitely an error that could accidentally happen and just be left with no way to fix it. And I think long tours are more prone to it, and I could definitely see it happening quite a few more times if the hologram is to return for Miku Expo, especially if they're touring that many places again, which would mean their setup time would shorten, which could cause more mistakes on the staff's part. So as much as we hate the LED screen, we have to give it some credit because its own imaging errors are much quicker and easier to fix, as we observed at Miku Expo 2024 in North America at the Phoenix Day 2 show. Although the LED screen is immune to having misaligned image issues, it has a different kind of imaging issue it can run into. Just a few songs into this concert, one of the panels malfunctioned, causing a bright purple square that appeared every time a character walked over it. Luckily, it showed up only when a character walked over it, as opposed to constantly being on. In that case, it would definitely bump this error up a tier, as well as if it malfunctioned in the middle of the screen, as then it would basically always be on. But luckily, the panel that malfunctioned was off to the side, meaning the characters only brushed over it a couple times before it disappeared again. It only became a huge problem for two songs, Childish War and On the Rocks, as these performances took up a larger portion of the stage, with both Rin and Len standing over the panel multiple times, and it constantly being present on the piano of On the Rocks. The panel actually malfunctioned basically as soon as the concert started. We can see it break just before the intro ends, but again, it luckily wasn't very noticeable as it only activated when characters walked past it, which for most of the first few songs they didn't really do, and it also seemed like it wasn't permanently broken, as sometimes the character had walked past it and it was fine. And I think they tried to fix it between Meiko's song and On the Rocks, as all of the lights completely faded out after Meiko left the stage, which wasn't something that happened at the other locations, but I don't know how that would have affected fixing the screen, as On the Rocks started as normal, not even having a longer pause between the songs. But after Kaito's solo song and then Meiko's solo song, we can see someone's head peek around the screen on the left side, which I believe is a staff member that was likely trying to fix the issue, but I think they might have been having some trouble trying to figure out from behind which panel it was that was broken. And the likely way to fix the issue would be to unplug and replug the panel back in again, which they can't really do in the middle of a song, so they possibly had to wait for each intermission between songs to try and fix it. It was constantly purple during On the Rocks until near the end of the song, where it starts to glitch a lot more, before it disappeared with Kaito's final keystroke on the piano. And from that point it seemed to be fixed, so thank you, Kaito. To my knowledge, this is the only show out of all the 2024 concert that this happened at, so it's an issue that isn't common, but it is possible for the LED screen. So when it comes to imaging issues from the projector or the LED screen is definitely better off, because the affected area is so small and it's also able to be fixed mid-concert, while you can only suffer with the hologram misalignment issue for the entirety of the concert. So love it or hate it, the LED screen definitely wins this battle. Skipping back over to 2020, we have a model rigging error. In this performance, Miku performed in her newest model, the R3 model, to perform a brand new song, YY, at Magical Mirai. However, despite the model being completely fine the year prior when it was first used, this time her eyelashes weren't rigged to her eyes, so every time she blinked, it created this mess. And I'm not sure how they didn't notice this, as it doesn't exactly look normal, unless Miku was trying out a new eyelining technique that just didn't work out. But I think the reason the model went from being fine in 2019 to breaking in 2020 is because the model was slightly edited in that time, as Krypton was trialing out the use of live AR videos in the concerts, so the model was tweaked to help it work right, as well as include new R3 abilities, such as the model lighting reflecting the IRL stage lights. So the eyelashes must have broken during this process, and either the team didn't notice or didn't think the tweaking would affect the eyes, so didn't check, or it broke very close to the concert date and didn't have time to fix it. But either way, it made it to the final stage. This eyelash error carried over into Miku's speech, which we can just about catch before the camera cuts away, but partway through the speech, it seems to be fixed. But then the very last blink she does, it's back to broken. Actually, now that I look, some of the blinks also do work in the performance, but only when her eyes were closed for longer than a split second. So I don't actually know what's going on here, but this error only occurred at the Osaka shows, as it was fixed when this song next performed at the Tokyo set of the concerts. But considering this is the same performance where Miku flossed, it's no surprise that it was cursed. But next we have a mistake that happened before the show properly started. In 2019, Miku and the others performed as part of the Bilibili Macrolink concert of that year, where many different virtual idols all performed. And as normal, the Krypton Lloyd section of the concert started with the typical intro. However, the video completely cut out partway through for some reason, and ended up skipping Luca's introduction completely by the time it came back on. I wonder how this happened, as the music still continued, so did they accidentally switch the video output? But poor Luca, always getting the short end of the stick. Hi, popping in while editing real quick, but I actually noticed another mistake in this performance, and that is during Decorator. After all the characters appear, we can see Kaito's foot randomly get cut off. Like, it just full on disappears. And I can't even think of an explanation for it, because just a split second later, he walks over that spot completely fine. It's so confusing, I can't even guess to how that happened. Like, why did it just cut out in that one spot, in that one quick moment, and the rest of the image was unaffected? If anyone has any idea how this could have happened, please share, because this is confusing me. But anyway, back to the video. But moving on, in 2015, we had a band member mistake that took place at Magical Mirai during Unhappy Refrain, where the guitarist messed up on the timing for the intro of the song and ends up playing out of time with the other band members. And as you can hear, he does manage to correct himself, and the rest of the song continues as normal. This could have been an issue with his in-ear monitor, either not working or was out of time, or since he managed to correct himself so quickly, it could have been that he miscalculated when to start playing. Or alternatively, Miku was the one that messed up, as she is playing guitar here. But either way, it was a very great recovery on his part. Keeping with band member errors, we have another one which occurred during the Kagamine's 14th anniversary special concert in 2022, and it's something that could have been detrimental. The keyboardist of this concert was Nao Nishimura, and if you haven't seen her in action, you must know that she is a complete bundle of energy and is seen bouncing around in basically every shot we see of her. And this concert was no different. However, this caused her a problem. During the beginning of Law Evading Rock, we still see her jumping, but we can see her waving towards off stage, before we get a shot of her holding a wire and a staff member coming to help her. This wire is for her in-ear monitor, and it has been disconnected. And if you don't know, an in-ear monitor is what allows the band members to play in time with each other, allowing them to hear their own and fellow band members' instruments, and also playing a tempo countdown at the beginning and sometimes during the song, so they know when to start playing and to keep in time. So for it to be disconnected meant she could not hear her own instrument properly, and if it wasn't reconnected in time, it could have led to some significant mess ups. But luckily, the staff members off stage were there and reacted super quickly, and she was already back to her jumpy self a few seconds later, clearly having not learnt from that incident. But in 2017, we have another band member incident that happened when Miku performed at the big festival in China, where for the performance of Satisfaction, the drummer's snare mic disconnects during the song. Unfortunately, I don't have good ears to spotting when it happens, so you'll have to check out the performance for yourself to hear it. I'm only able to tell that it does sound a little different, but I wasn't sure if they were going with a different arrangement or not. But you are briefly able to see a staff member crouching down by the drum set near the end of the song, presumably trying to fix it. And another fail during this festival performance is that the back screen visuals for Raspberry Monster are late to start, with the countdown starting after Miku has already sung it. But it does get synced up a little while later, as we can see the hearts exploding on beat and the 6 PM showing up the same time Miku sings it. But But this whole festival performance could also be classed as a fail just due to how dim the hologram is, especially when we see it from the side angles, and also the fact that the back screen clashes and washes out the hologram even more depending on the angles. From the front it does perfectly frame the screen, but move to the sides and it becomes a mess, with Miku being barely visible just because of how bright the back screen is. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise they used the LED screen at Coachella, because this stage design would definitely wash Miku out just as much, even from the front angle, and I don't think non-fans would need the extra ammunition of a fake anime girl you can't even see on stage when they saw her at Coachella. From 2020 we have a small lip sync error in Greenlight Serenade, as in the live version at Magical Mirai there was a lyric change at the last line, which I find really cool anyway, but it became a problem when this song performed outside of Magical Mirai and they changed the lyric back to the original version, and because the lyric change meant Miku sung a different syllable at the end, when they used the original version it looked a little strange. So her mouth was shaped to sing an O sound, while she was actually singing an R sound. Again, this is a minor thing, as this song rarely performs outside of Magical Mirai, only having done so twice, and something as small as this doesn't really get noticed in person, so once more, why did the cameras keep zooming in on it? It would have gone forever unnoticed otherwise. For another similar mistake to the last video, we have another case of a character floating. During the early concerts, a technique was used to show that a character was standing further back on the stage, and to do that they had a completely dark background and the character slightly floated to give the illusion that they were standing further away. And this technique was used in Change Me when Meiko takes a few steps back during the performance. However, modern concerts don't have as dark of a background anymore, and until recently they always had a projector placed right in the middle of the back of the screen, which causes the whole stage to be brighter. And because of that we can see that Meiko is just hovering above the ground. But they learnt their lesson from Magnet's performance, as they conveniently switched the camera away when Change Me performed at Magical Mirai, so we couldn't see it properly, but if we look close enough we can notice that she is suddenly standing above the projectors, when a few seconds ago she was just standing on the same level as them. And we also have this obvious shot from Kaito and Meiko's solo concert, so they almost got away with it, but not quite. Now for the final fail I'm going to be talking about isn't a specific error, but I think it deserves an honourable mention, and that is MikuPa Singapore 2011. This concert has a special place in my heart, just because it was a little scuffed around every corner, yet the audience loved it all the same. Starting off with the fact that this is the best footage I can find of the concert, which is already a great start, and right from the beginning, even though the quality of the footage doesn't help, you can see that the hologram is already quite dim and a little bit blurry, because I think they let out too much smoke during this concert, causing the stage lights to appear much brighter, which is the most evident during the intense voice of Hatsune Miku, where the crowd literally gets flashbanged during the performance and you couldn't see Miku at all. And in some shots the screen goes completely white, either that or Miku was just casually opening the gates of heaven, but you can see the lighting and the smoke balance was just completely off in some shots. I can't imagine how it must have been to witness this in person. But we also have a couple audience fails during this concert, first during Open and Close Demons and the Dead, where they weren't quite sure about the call and response, but you can hear a few people shouting it. But their main fail was during Aria, where the band member introduction took place, and at the end, Miku says, and the vocalist is, and the crowd is supposed to shout out, Hatsune Miku. But instead they were just a little confused and just screamed. But I don't blame them. Perhaps they didn't understand what Miku was saying, or didn't even know this was a thing, as I'm not sure if at the time there were concert clips online that showed this happening. After all, this was the 6th Miku concert to ever happen, and the 2nd Miku concert to ever happen overseas. So I don't blame them for not knowing, but it is funny to see Miku and even the band members waiting for a response, only to get nothing and have to continue the performance. Yet even with this and the messy lighting, the crowd enjoyed themselves all the same, and they'll finally be able to get to see Miku again, as she will finally return to Singapore after 14 years. Hopefully with a little less smoke this time. Anyway, those are all the mistakes for today, and possibly for a while, as I doubt there'll be even more hiding around. Like in the first video, I would like to thank all of the staff members and band members for being able to put on so many flawless shows over the years, as their efforts should not go unnoticed, especially for the amount of concerts that they do these days. And another thank you for everyone who shared these mistakes with me. I really appreciate it so much. And unless the crew suddenly decides to make a bunch of mistakes really quickly, I doubt there'll be enough to make another one of these. So I hope you enjoyed, and that you'll join me in my next Miku concert related video.